चित्तानि नाहं न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमिर्न तेजो न वायु चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न च प्राणसंज्ञो न वै पञ्चवायु न वा सप्तधातु न वा पञ्चकोश न वाक्पाणिपादं न चोपस्थपायु चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न मे द्वेषरागो न मे लोभमोहो मदोर्नैव मे नैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञः अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न मृत्युर्न शङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्म न बन्धो न मित्रं गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् अहं निर्विकल्पः निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपो विभूत्वाच्च सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां न च सङ्गतं नैव मुक्तिर्न मेया चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्
Morning. Good morning, everyone. It's morning here in the United States on the East Coast. And I'm very happy to see so many people joining our satsang from all over the world, from Norway and Sweden and Mexico and India and Pakistan and Turkey and Kuwait and Rio de Janeiro and Brazil and Argentina and on and on. So namaste to all of you. We continue with our satsang every Sunday at this time. And satsang is a Sanskrit word which means a gathering of people seeking the truth. Seeking the truth. They don't yet have the truth, but they're seeking the truth, and that's good enough. I heard an expression once: keep the company of those who are seeking the truth, and please run away from those who have found it. So there we are. At my stage in life, the three most important activities for me are Sangha, this gathering, sadhana, my own spiritual practice, and seva, service. At this moment, there's nothing else that I'm interested in, to be quite honest. Also, these three aspects of awakening have also been referred to in the Buddhist tradition as take refuge in the dharma. Dharma means higher purpose. Take refuge in the Buddha, which means expanded consciousness, and take refuge in the Sangha, the community. And so now we are a global community. And if we one day reach critical mass, let's say 1 billion, then we will be definitely moving in the direction of a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. So I think last time we spoke about the 5 yamas. The yamas are the relationship of interpersonal interactions. Yama, interpersonal interactions. Today we might call that social intelligence. And we mentioned 5 of them. Ahimsa, which is peace consciousness. Asteya, non-covetousness. Satya, truth. Parigraha, non-grasping. And brahmacharya, optimal use of energy. Now, if you want to go over those yamas, you can go back to the previous satsang, which should be online on the foundation, Chopra Foundation site, or it will be online anyway soon. Today, I want to cover a little bit about what are called the niyamas. Niyamas are actually principles of personal relationship, intrapersonal relationship with the self. And all these techniques, these are of course all practical techniques for awakening. That's why we are calling this series Revelation and Awakening. Revelation means revealed truth beyond the mind, beyond the conditioned mind, which is always telling us magical lies. So revelation is revealed truth in the ancient tradition of the Vedanta. It's Shruti and Smriti. So Shruti is that which is heard directly from the source, and Smriti is that which is remembered or recognized. Recognized means know once again. Remember that which was shattered into many pieces and dismembered is remembered. So from fragmentation to wholeness. That is what revelation and awakening is. From the fragmented conditioned mind to the infinite source of all minds, all knowing, all perception, all thinking, all sensation, all interpretation of it as well. So today what I wanted to do is briefly mention the niyamas, and we can discuss them in great details. But then I would also like to discuss how this leads to a deeper understanding of karma and dharma and moksha. Moksha means freedom. Freedom to create, freedom to love, freedom to evolve without hindrance, freedom to make choices, all going beyond the conditioned mind, which is also the karmic mind. So let me briefly mention the niyamas first. The first one is shauch. Shauch in Sanskrit means hygiene, cleanliness. So basically it means getting rid of mental toxins and getting rid of physical toxins, okay? Mental hygiene, physical hygiene. For this, we have the usual practices. Mental toxins are anything that create distress. So hostility, anger, shame, guilt, depression, anxiety. All these are mental toxins because they create fear, separation, and bodily inflammation. So bodily inflammation is connected to inflammation in the mind as well. And we know today that depression, mental distress, anxiety, inflammation precede chronic disease by several years, even decades. So shauch is mental hygiene. Get rid of mental toxins related to physical toxins. Physical toxins include toxic relationships, toxic environments, toxic work, toxic food, toxic emotions, which we mentioned, but these relate to physical things. And all these physical things are also inseparable from mental toxins. Good sleep, meditation, exercise, yoga, pranayama, all help with that. So that's a shauch. The second niyama is santosh. Santosh means contentment, equanimity. And it's, of course, connected to joy as well. It is to be independent of hope and despair. Okay, santosh leads to ultimate creativity that comes from the source of all minds. The third niyama is tapas. Now, the way tapas is usually translated as discipline or sacrifice or austerity. And I have to say that, all these translations that we've read about in the classical texts and their commentaries are very legitimate, but I like to share my own insights from my own experience and my own reflections and my own reading in the past. So I've been a student of all yoga and Vedanta and Kashmir Shaivism and Buddhism and Judaism and all the great spiritual traditions of the world, Islam, Sufism. But, I also, for my own satisfaction, reflect on these issues in a more contemporary way. So for me, tapas is not discipline. I don't like discipline. I don't like the word discipline. Tapas is the sacrifice of the absolute as it becomes the relative. And that's happening right now. The absolute is sacrificing itself. The non-local awareness is sacrificing itself in this experience that we call the relative, the theater of space-time and causality. So tapas is understanding that the infinite being that we are is always sacrificing itself in space-time as experience. And if we are aware of how we do it, then of course we construct our own experiences. Tapas. Swadhyaya, which means self-study. So the self-study, the best study is the study of the self in all its dimensions. So the self in the dimension that we call perceptual activity, the self in the dimension that we call the physical body, the self in the dimension that we call the subtle body, which includes mind, intellect, and ego. And then the self that is the jiva, the individual soul, Atman, the unconditioned soul, Brahman, universal consciousness. This thing that you have, body, mind, if you study it, reflect on it, engage with it, observe it, it reveals itself to you more than any book. I have all those books in the background, and they're all books I've studied in the past. But today I realized that no book can give you or reveal to you that which your own body-mind and experience of the body-mind reveals to you. And the final niyama is Ishwar Pranidhana, surrender to the divine mystery that is you. It's a mystery. And it's a mystery because you cannot solve it intellectually. It's impossible. And at some point, you surrender to that mystery after reading all those books, including mine, because no book can reveal ultimately the truth to you. Only yourself can reveal it to yourself. So those are the 5 niyamas. And today I want to connect them to karma, dharma, moksha, and then I'll answer your questions. Okay? So, of course, I've spoken about karma in the past, but let's go a little deeper today in karma. Karma means action, but it also means experience. So our life is a continuum of experiences. How do we define life as we experience it? How do we define life as we experience it? We define life through events that occur in our awareness, and we call these space-time events. So right now, what you're experiencing, when you look at me, that is a space-time event. Where? In your consciousness. When you hear me, that's a space-time event in your consciousness. When you interpret what I'm saying, that's a space-time event in your consciousness. So what is life? It's a continuum of space-time events and their interpretation. And these space-time events and their interpretation are a result of past experiences and how we interpreted those past experiences. That's called karma. It's the story that is based on the continuum of space-time events. What is life? Life is a continuum of experiences. Of course, if you ask a biologist, once I asked a friend of mine, what is life, biologically speaking? And he said, biologically speaking, life is a sexually transmitted, incurable condition. Not bad. Yeah, all life is a result of that activity. But we are talking about life at a deeper level, the continuum of space time events given a storyline that we call karma. Okay. Now, having said this, you need to understand something very interesting and actually very remarkable. Okay. That all experience, including the experience you're having right now of listening to me and watching me, all experience is of the past. All experience is of the past. All experience is of the past. So by the time you hear my words, they don't exist. By the time you say, oh, that's Deepak, the snapshot of perception, the visual snapshot of perception, the space-time event of perception that you recognize as Deepak is over. So by the time you touch something and feel the sensation, by the time you smell something, taste something, think something, it's already happened. Okay, so we only experience the past. Right now, you're experiencing the past in microseconds or nanoseconds. But when we think of the Milky Way galaxy and the origin of the universe, Big Bang, 14 billion years ago, that's also, of course, an experience of the past, recognized in human consciousness as a human construct based on our current perceptual experience, which is also in the past. So, right now, what you're experiencing is karma. Every experience is karma. Every thought is karma. Every emotion is karma. Every perception is karma. Every action is karma. Every reflection is karma. Anything that appears on the screen of consciousness has already happened, including our thoughts, by the way. Our thoughts come from the unmanifest, which we call para, unmanifest. As a result of karma, of course, interpretation of the past, and then thoughts get to the level of pashyanti. Pashyanti means just a vague intention or idea, and then suddenly internal dialogue, para pashantimi, madhyama, and then vaikari, speech and action in the world. Okay, so every experience is karma. What is good karma, what is bad karma, just a judgment. So those experiences that we find pleasurable or joyful or make us happy, we call it good karma. Some people find the same experiences not pleasurable. I like coffee, you don't, or whatever. So those we say not so good karma. But all those are value statements. Of course, it feels good to have joyful experiences and pleasurable experiences, but do know that pleasurable experiences have the potential to become painful experiences. Painful experiences have the potential to become joyful experiences or pleasurable experiences. But all that is in the realm of karma. And why is karma uniquely personal? Well, because we've all had different experiences, and we've all interpreted these different experiences also in a unique way based on our conditioning. Okay, so we walked through different gardens, we've knelt at different graves, we've heard different songs, we've watched different movies, we have metabolized every experience that we've had and interpreted. And we now call that the body-mind world experience. Your karma is uniquely yours, filtered through the conditioned mind. But behind that is the infinite awareness, which is differentiating into all minds, all thoughts, all knowers, all modes of knowing, all that is known or is possible to be known. And when it is known, it's already happened. Okay. So all karma is in time. All karma is in time. Dharma. Dharma is ultimately our life purpose. It is connected to the ultimate goal, which is freedom, moksha, freedom to create, freedom to love, freedom to evolve, freedom to manifest abundance, whatever you want to. But ultimately, dharma is a total alignment of the elements and forces that compose the body mind and the elements and forces of the universe. So when we are in that state where all the elements and forces in our body are aligned with all the elements and forces of the universe, that would also be a state of least entropy, what I would call ageless body, timeless mind. Okay, as close as you can get to the ageless body, timeless mind. Least entropy. All the rhythms of the cosmos are also the rhythms of the body. Circadian rhythms as the earth is spinning on its axis, seasonal rhythms as the earth is going around the sun, gravitational rhythms, the effects of the stars, moon, sun, everything, galaxies on our body fluids. 65-70% of our body is ocean. So we have gravitational rhythms, lunar rhythms. And when we are totally aligned, that would be least entropy. We call our body, in Kashmir Shaivism, is the universe, having the nature of awareness. And we call the universe universe, one song, one symphony. And our body dances to it, even though we may not be able to name the tune. Doesn't matter. And in fact, even the slight shift in the alignment of bodily rhythms with universal rhythms can cause minor distress, unnoticed, ultimately leading to aging, entropy, and so on. Dharma ultimately is total alignment. Okay, and ultimately dharma leads to moksha, which is freedom. So they're all kind of connected. Now, if you look at the traditions of the Vedanta and Kashmir Shaivism and many others, they connect this to the four goals of life. Okay, so the first goal of life is called artha. Artha literally means material abundance, including money, which is a human construct for exchanging values. Okay, so artha, material abundance, first goal of life. Second goal of life, kama, not karma, kama, K-A-M-A, as in Kama Sutra, pleasure, including sensual pleasure, sensual delight, sexual pleasure connected to spiritual ecstasy. That's Kama, Kama Devi, the goddess of beauty and pleasure and sensuality and sexuality, like what we would say in the Western traditions would be Aphrodite, Kama. The third goal of life is dharma, which I've already mentioned. And then the fourth, spontaneously emerging, moksha, freedom, ultimate freedom, which is surrender to infinite possibilities, infinite correlation, non-local correlation, infinite unpredictability, infinite creativity, and harnessing the powers of attention and intention. There we are, the sequence of manifestation, the sequence of manifestation. And so now that I have mentioned the niyamas, I've mentioned what karma is, I've mentioned what dharma is, and I've mentioned what moksha is, and I've mentioned the goals of life. These are the keys to our deeper knowing of self and what we call enlightenment is just self-awareness. Okay, what is spirituality? Spirituality is self-awareness. That's all. The more self-aware you are, the more expanded your awareness is. And more expanded your awareness is, then Gina Parker said, why not say making love? Why is it sex to you? Is that a guy thing? Okay, I apologize. I won't use the word sex. Whatever you want. I'm infinitely flexible. And one of the aphorisms also is infinite flexibility is the secret to immortality, or the knowing of immortality. So whatever you say, I will accommodate. And it's maybe a guy thing, but I don't think of myself just as a guy. I think of myself as more than a guy, metahuman, but another story. Okay, so let's go back to what I was saying, the continuum of this expression, niyama, karma, dharma, moksha, the four goals of life. That's the complete package as promised by expansion of self-awareness. Now, in most cases, because our ego identity takes over, our reactions to the world are either in the fight-flight response or in the second response, which is the reactive response, the ego response. Once we go beyond that, we enter restful awareness. Restful awareness is just being present. Being present to what? Being present to the source of experience. So right now, as you're listening to me, even as you turn your attention to that which is listening, do it right now. As you're listening to me, be aware of that which is listening, and that still presence that you feel is presence. Source, not mind, which might be saying, I wish I'd gone to the bathroom before I started listening to this, or what am I going to eat for dinner? So all of that is the mind, but the source of the mind is in between every thought. Okay, and in between every thought is your access to divine consciousness. It's a shift in awareness from that which is being experienced to that which is having the experience, presence. Okay, so that is what we say restful awareness. But if in restful awareness you ask yourself a question, you will also find something deeper than restful awareness, and that is called the intuitive response. Intuitive response means having access to a form of knowledge which is beyond the conditioned mind, which is contextual, relational, holistic, doesn't have a win-lose orientation, goes beyond cause and effect, eavesdrops on a bigger, expanded dialogue, which is beyond the conditioned mind, social mind, ultimately eavesdrops on the mind of the cosmos. That's the intuitive response. And then the next response would be the creative response through intention, sankalp, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, to manifest something that never existed before. New context, new meaning, new relationship, new story, new reality. And beyond the creative response, the archetypal visionary response, which is downloading gods and goddesses in embryo and expressing them through your incarnated being. Manifesting the power of angels, divine beings, gods, goddesses, divine, peaceful deities, creative deities, playful deities as well. Deities being symbolic representations of the infinite, because we cannot conceptualize the infinite. So that would be the visionary response, and then beyond that, the sacred response. Sacred response, which means knowing yourself as the source of everything that's happening in the universe, ultimately, because that self is beyond the conditioned mind. Now, these are also represented, metaphorically speaking, as the 7 chakras. The first chakra has to do with security, the second, sensation, the third, transformation, the fourth, abundance, and love, and the fifth, creative expression, the sixth, insight, intuition, imagination, the beginning of revelation, and then the seventh, transcendence. So this can be said so many ways. Okay, and this is our journey. And I think as we progress in this series, we will all be sharing the journey together, and then we will see what happens. My intention always has been that through Seva Sangha Sadhana, we can reach that critical mass for a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. So, with that, I will now open the forum to questions. And some of these questions I'm seeing, some of are coming in, but we can start now. And for the next 25 minutes, we will open this forum to questions. Angela Swardling, how do I identify with the mind's magical lies? Everything that the mind says is a magical lie. So that's called Maya, and that's fine. You know, it's the veil of perception that hides the truth from us. So everything the mind tells you is a magical lie, and it's okay, because once you understand the magical lie, then you can play with it and create your own experience of reality, which we call Leela, One thing you can do is also, anytime you think you know the truth, you can ask yourself, is this true? How am I sure if this is true? Are there other explanations for what this is being called as true? What is the opposite of that? What are the many variations of this perception? As the Buddha says, only perception, that is right perception, is either no perception or all perceptions. Now, Sandra asks, what is a profound example of your real God connection experience? Or is it a lifestyle journey? No. When you have divine awareness, then you commune with the divine in others. So, divine awareness in the subject and divine awareness in the object is communion, not communication. Same thoughts, same perceptions, same connection. Ultimate love is actually divine communion. It also then manifests as what everybody calls miracles, but actually everything is a miracle. Existence is a miracle. Jolene Sells says, are there different ways of meditation? Yes. Mantra meditation, primordial sound meditation, transcendental meditation. These are mantra meditations. Mantra means mind, instrument of the mind that takes you beyond the mind. But then there are breath meditations, there are reflective meditations, there's concentration, there's contemplation, there's awareness of body, there's awareness of what we call visceroception, interoception, there's awareness of sensory experience, there's awareness of relationship, there's awareness of the universe, there's awareness of awareness. Hundreds of ways to meditate. And we can explore them all here. Luke Simonson, how to get knowledge from the Akashic record. By the way, last time I did mention a good book on the Akashic field. The author is Erwin Laszlo. He's a great modern philosopher, and I've written a lot with him on the Akashic record as well. So the Akashic record is the immeasurable potential of all that was, all that is, and all that will be, but also the record of every experience. So if I asked you right now to think of a rainbow, and as soon as I ask you to think of the rainbow, you have an image somewhere in consciousness, not in your brain. There's no image of rainbows. There are no sounds in consciousness, no pictures in consciousness. But as soon as I say rainbow, you have an experience. Okay, that memory is in the Akashic record. When you actually experience the memory, then there's some activity in your brain. But even the brain, as experienced perceptually, is a memory. Okay. So that's a brain. If you've seen one on a CAT scan or on the dissection table as a medical student, everything you see is a memory. It's karma. Okay. So how do we access the Akashic record? By going past the magical lies, by going past the secret passages, the dark alleys, and the ghost-filled attics of the conditioned mind through meditation, through stillness, in the gap between every space-time event. So every experience is a space-time event. And so every experience is, think of it as a frame in a movie or in a digital movie, the on-off of photons, electrons. So that every event is a discontinuity, which means it has nothing to do with the previous event unless we insert a story. And once we insert a story, it becomes a movie. So, when you go to a regular movie, that's all also the same thing. In the old days, if you moved the reel 26 times a second, then you did not see the gaps. You saw the movie. In these days, we have digital movies, so you don't see the gaps at all, but they're there between every digital on and off. Okay, so our experience of the world, of our body, of our mind is similar frames. But in between the frames, stories based on memories, all accessed through the Akashic record. Mate Delgado, can we change our reality? Yes, that's the whole point. Reality is subject to revision, but what we're calling realities now is not fundamental reality. We're calling it perceived reality, which is our experience, which is the Leela, the story that we enjoy or not enjoy, that causes us pleasure and pain. But here's a very important point to recognize, and that is that fundamental reality is borderless, structureless, but it has certain movements. And these movements in Sanskrit we call the gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas. Okay, you can also say creativity, transformation, inertia. You can also say space, time, gravity, if you want. Okay, or you can say spin, charge, mass. The different ways of saying that fundamental reality is a movement of awareness that gives us experience of perceived reality, mental reality, not fundamental reality. Okay, so spin, movement, charge, transformation, mass, inertia, sattva, rajas, tamas, endlessly transforming. And so we can access that by focusing on these 5 aspects of, in Sanskrit also, of Purusha or Shiva. So creation, sustenance or maintenance, inertia, dissolution, destruction, concealment, revelation. It's like that's happening right now to every thought. Okay, it's born, it's experienced, it dies, it hides, and then it reveals itself again in a slightly different way, like a winding staircase, repeating, recycling, reincarnating, evolving. Law of attraction versus law of cause and effect. So, I have adjusted in the last few years to this law of attraction, but not in the way that it is currently portrayed. So right now, the way to understand the law of attraction is look around you, okay? And look at your own body and examine your mind. That's what you have attracted based on karma and based on your level of awareness. So everything that's happening right now, including the experience of your body, experience of the mind, ego, conditioned mind, experience of the world, is karma the pleasure and pain body of physical body, but also the planetary body. In fact, one of the Sanskrit ways to describe Earth, planet Earth, is karma bhumi, this loka. This loka means location. And when we say location, we mean continuum of space-time events. But actually, these locations, even though we experience them as space-time events, they're actually actualizations of the Akashic field. Okay. So cause and effect only applies to the theater of space-time and causality. Okay. When we think of ourselves as a body, we experience space because my body is here and your body is somewhere there. When we identify with the mind, we experience time. But when we identify with the source, we go beyond space and time. So, law of attraction is being applied every single moment at this, in what we call a ceaseless, timeless now, as it becomes time bound. And if you want to change that, if you want to go beyond that, then you have to use sankalpa. And those are the last three limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, or the 8 limbs of yoga. Dharana, which focused awareness, either on an object or on a thought or on a part of the body or on the breath or on an emotion. So that's dharana. Dhyan is the flow of meditation in that focus, whether it's a mantra or a thought or an emotion or a sensation or a perception. And samadhi is transcendence. Subject, object become one. And then infinite possibilities and infinite choices. People ask, do we have free will? Or is everything determined? So here's a saying from one of the Upanishads: you are what your deepest desire is. As is your desire, so is your intention. As is your intention, so is your will. As is your will, so is your deed. As is your deed, so is your destiny, karmic destiny. But actually, if you go really deep into this, you'll see that there is either freedom or there is personal will. So when we say Ishwar Pranidhana, there is only the will of the divine. In Christian traditions, we say, thy will be done. Surrender. And then grace. Grace, non-local correlation, synchronicity takes over. What we call synchronicity, non-local correlation, meaningful coincidences, good luck, the state of grace, God's providence, existence taking care of itself, is ultimately freedom. No need to even exert individual will. Okay, now the next question, Demetrius, what is your understanding of synchronicity and serendipity? Well, good, just follow that, synchronicity. So synchronos, chronos means time, synchronos means synchronized in time. Okay, meaningful coincidence, coincidence, coinciding. Actually, everything in the universe is synchronistic and coinciding. Just ask yourself, how does a human body think thoughts, play a piano, kill germs, remove toxins, make a baby at the same time while monitoring the movement of stars and planets and all kinds of events in the galaxies as its own biological rhythms? How does a biological organism do that? Through synchronicity. So actually, if we are connected to source, then all we experience is synchronicity. All we experience is meaningful coincidences. All we experience is the state of grace. All we experience is good luck. Anytime we are not experiencing this, we have shifted. Okay. Synchronicity, non-local correlation. Think of that. Unmitigated, unmediated, and instantaneous, which means there's no medium of exchange, no energy exchange, no information exchange. Unmediated. Okay. Unmitigated, the robustness of the correlation does not diminish with distance in space-time. And instantaneous, immediate. Beam me up, Scotty. When Scotty disappears here in another galaxy, instantaneously. That would be transportation or teleportation. Louis O'Flaherty is power of many eyes focused on one intention more powerful than one eye. Well, ultimately, when we say many eyes, we mean many fragmented minds. Because ultimately, I am, what we call I am, is all eyes, okay? All individual eyes. And if we synchronistically focus on any intention, then that intention becomes much more powerful because we all are synchronized. Brain waves cohere, and there's studies on this as well. Erin McPherson, Deepak, how can we use eye knowledge to improve our relationship? It's a very good question. Every relationship, by the way, is karma. That we call good relationship, bad relationship, doesn't matter. If it creates an emotional response, it's karma, and it is meant to expand your awareness, okay? So I would say if you want to harness relationship, focus on something I've said before, the 4 A's: attention, deep listening without judgment; affection, deep caring without judgment; acceptance, not trying to change anyone; and so attention, affection, appreciation, gratitude, and you're beginning your journey of what we call nurturing relationships in the direction of unity consciousness. Ria Mukherjee, if our ancestors are within us, what would death of an ancestor parent mean? You know, this whole thing about death is very interesting because death and birth are happening ceaselessly in what we call every moment. In timeless now, there's no birth and death. Okay. But birth and death is happening ceaselessly in timeless now. Every thought is born, dies. Emotion born, dies. Perception born, dies. You know, the snapshot. And so on. So birth and death are ceaseless. In between is timeless being. Life is the continuum of birth and death. Birth is the opposite of death. Death is the opposite of birth. You can't have one without the other. Just like you can't have an on without the off. Okay, you can't have any sensation, in fact, unless there is an on and an off. If I put my hand on your thigh and I don't move it, after a while you won't know it's there. But if I move it again, you might say, oh, what are you trying to do? Okay, you can't normally sense the sensation of your clothes touching your skin unless it moves. So all experience is based on birth and death, all experience. So that leads to, without birth and death, there's no experience, okay? There's only timeless being, unmanifest, para. Leads to the next question. Claudio Gonzalez says, what is the best way to accept death? To know that without death, life is not possible. Okay. In biology, we use a term called apoptosis. I don't know how much you know about apoptosis, but it's a biological term which means programmed cellular death. Programmed cellular death. Every cell is programmed to die because if it didn't, your body wouldn't be able to renew itself. Your stomach cells die every 5 days. Okay, your skin cells are dying and are born every month. Your skeleton, it's carbon, phosphorus, and oxygen, nitrogen, other elements come and go. in 3 months, you don't have the same skeleton that you had 3 months ago. Of course, because of habits of conditioning and behavior and thought, we repeat those same actions, giving rise to the same appearance. And now, with the continuum of time, the appearance also goes in the direction of old age, infirmity, and death. So when a cell forgets to die, that's a cancerous cell. From a consciousness perspective, only from a consciousness perspective, cancer is the loss of the memory of death. Loss of the memory of death. And once we remember the death of the individual cell is in order to preserve the sanctity of the whole, then we realize that all disease ultimately is a loss of the memory of wholeness. And therefore, health is the return of the memory of wholeness. Okay, who we really are. Health, holy, whole, all inclusive. We are not just a body. We're not just a mind. We're not just the experience of the world. We are that which gives rise to all of the above. And when we return to that memory of wholeness, then we are holy and we are healed. So let's end with that today. We are holy and we are healed. Just a question of intention, attention, focused awareness, sankalpa, dharana, dhyan, samadhi. So I will be answering your questions, more of them as they come through. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Godspeed.
मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कार चित्तानिनाहं न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न च प्राणसंज्ञो न वै न वा सप्तधातु न वा पञ्चकोश न वाक्पाणिपादं न चोपस्तपायु चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न मे द्वेषरागो न मे लोभमोहो चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञ अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न मृत्युर्न शङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्म न बन्धो न मित्रं गुरो नैव शिष्य चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपो विभूत्वाच्च सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां न च सङ्गतं नैव मुक्तिर्न मेया चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं 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 शिवोऽहं